It's just one of those happy days. The weekend comes, let's not go home. It's just one of those days where you don't want to wake up. Everything is everybody sucks. You don't really know why, but you want to justify ripping someone's head off. No human contact, and if you interact, your life is on contract. Your best bet,
Just knock it off, you scum bucket.
it's just one of those days. It's just one of those happy days. It's just one of those happy days. It's just one of those happy days. The weekend comes, let's not go home. Ready to make stays. It's just one of those days, feeling like a freight train. First one to complain, leaves with the bloodstain. Damn right, I'm a maniac. You better shoot, cause I'm fucking up your program. And if you're stuck up, you just locked up. Next in line to get fucked up. Your best bet is to stay away, motherfucker. It's just
I'm losing my cool.
it's all about the happy days. It's just one of those happy days. It's just one of those happy days. The weekend comes, let's not go home. Ready to make stays. Feel like shit. My suggestion is keep your distance. 'Cause right now I'm dangerous. Right now I'm dangerous.
Something's happening to the bonds.
And my day keeps going this way and this way. I'm gonna pop you one so you'll stop playing games. Give me something great. Give me something great. I hope you know I like a chainsaw. A chainsaw. A motherfucking chainsaw.
What?
So come and get.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Mood of the Nation podcast. I'm your host for this evening, Chief Moody. So I'm a bit of an idiot because every time I start the show, I always have that opening song, "Happy Days" by Limp Bizkit with the show Happy Days theme song, of course. So I was looking through my phone to see if the stream was working okay as well, and then I just got a quick look at them, and I'm like, why is the opening not going on? And then I realised I didn't share the actual stream. So that was that. A small technical issue there, but what could be the reason is I must be really tired after work today. But hopefully there won't be any more tech issues or anything like that at all. So that should be fine and dusted. Let me see who's in the chat just now. I think there's like 18 people watching already, which is really good. Oh, 20. It just came through right now, so let's see. Gamma Sandwich, hello. How you doing, sir? Jacob J4746, hello, how you doing? Please like on the way in, thank you. Yes, please definitely do that. Like the stream if you haven't done so already. Jose, I don't know if I might butcher the name again, my apologies, but hello to you. Thank you for watching the stream again. Scottish Tam, hello, how you doing? Thank you for watching the stream. Budgie Burger, good evening. It's raining here and I love it. Yeah, it's been pouring down with rain recently. It wasn't raining where I was working. It was only kind of spitting just a wee bit towards the end. But then it got really heavy when I got back home. But hopefully it'll be sunny tomorrow. But you never know. Let's see, Chitan Baradia. I hope I don't butcher that name. If I did butcher that name, my apologies. But I don't think I've seen you before. But if you're new, thank you very much for tuning into the stream and like the stream, and if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the channel for more content if you'd like. Let's see, Henry Hill, hello, how you doing? Thank you for watching the stream. What's happening? Oh, Michael Malloy, thank you for watching the stream. Let me see, Jojo Gizmo, you alright? We're alright, Jojo, thank you for tuning in. Sammy Shaw, hello, how you doing? Let's Scottish Time already. Sir Snowy, hello, how you doing? Thank you for watching the stream. Resisting the Lies, hello sir, thank you for tuning in, I really appreciate that. Let's see, hello Chief Moody, hope all is well. Everything's doing fine and dandy, Henry Hill, I really do appreciate you tuning into the stream, really awesome of you. Sensum Communum, hello, how you doing? Let's see, thank you for watching the stream again. William, I'll just call it William. Hello, how you doing? Thank you for watching the stream. I really do appreciate that. James, Andrew Morrison, hello Chief Moody and everyone. Hello James, thank you for watching the stream. That's really about it so far. 24 people watching the stream so far, so hopefully more people will come along. I just also want to say, just real quick, I really do appreciate the new followers on my Telegram account, or Telegram channel, I should say, and also on my YouTube. Just a couple of subscribers, of course, but I really do appreciate the people who shared that post. It's really awesome of you guys to do that. Um, I really appreciate the new followers on my Telegram channel, which it was, I think before that I was just on 91 subscribers, but now currently I'm sitting at 261 on my Telegram, which is just awesome. That's really good to see that it was such a boost regarding to in terms of how many subscribers follow me on my Telegram account. I really do appreciate that, guys. It's really awesome of you all to do that. English Sailor, hello. Sailor, how you doing? Thank you for watching the stream. So, my pleasure, fellow Scott Chief Mooney. No worries, Henry. Thank you. So, tonight's episode of The Mood of the Nation being episode 6, I believe. I should know that. I've already written down within the title. Anyway, tonight's episode is going to be not like a major one or anything like that at all, except for I'm going to have on a very special guest this evening. Now, I have had guests on my live streams previously on my channel, but in terms of a guest appearing on the Mood of the Nation podcast, I would say this guest is the first ever guest for this type of show. Just hold on just real quick, 1 second. Good evening, Chief Moody. Just joined, having just got in from work. Looking forward to this one. No worries, Tony Smith. I really do appreciate you tuning in. It's really good of you. See, the football Boogle became a still game slow. Oh, don't get me started on the whole football thing, especially when it comes to last week on Friday and also this past one on, well, what was it, Monday or Tuesday, I think it was, somewhere like that. It was a game between Scotland and Croatia, but I'm sure we'll delve into that later on. Anyway, back on track. I have with me a very special guest this evening. So, I have been watching his content for a while now. He's an up-and-coming YouTuber or content creator as of late. Another Scotsman like myself, and also people like No Chance and Resistant Lies and so on. It is my absolute... Oh, no, sorry. If you hear cars pass by, my windows are open, so if you hear that, my apologies for that. But anyway, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce you all to the one and only Scots Armour. How you doing, sir?
That was quite a grand welcome there. Thanks very much, sir. I'm good. Thanks very much for having me on. Much kind of you, and I hope everyone in the chat's having a good evening.
Yeah, no worries. I tend to have, I don't know why, I always tend to have like a great grand opening when it comes to the opening from a stream, or even whenever I have a guest on. It just kind of builds that not suspense, but just builds that whole, who's it going to be, that sort of thing in terms of the surprise. Even I see Resisting the Lies saying he doesn't deserve an entrance like that, the wee Oh dear. And even Sir Snowy, even Scots Armour. Look, everyone's pretty much are writing in the chat just now saying, oh, it's awesome having Scots Armour coming on, so that's really good. Let me see, what's Sense of Communion was written here. My mate called, not seen him in Youngs, and it was, did you see the match? No, but he did see the X versus Y match. No, but surely you watched? No. But yeah, the football. So we could definitely delve into the whole football stuff in a moment, but what I kind of want to do just now, if you don't mind me doing so, since whenever I have a guest on, like yourself in this case, I always want to kind of get to know them a little bit more. So, for example, I'm pretty sure everyone remembers I had No Chance, I think it was like a couple of months back, but this was, of course, before the Mood of the Nation first aired on this channel. But the whole point was just to get to know you a bit more and where you got started with this doing content creating and all of that. So I guess we could pretty much start from there. Is what made you want to become a content creator, and what can we expect in the future in terms of your content, so to speak?
Just really speaking to different folk on Telegram. In all honesty, obviously there's like yourself, we've got No Chance, Resisting the Lies, and the more that I've tried to talk to people on Telegram and telling them obviously the story about the way I've seen Glasgow change in my lifetime. I just thought I could be talking on the app and everybody's great and they've been really kind so far. But it's either one of those ones, and I suppose you either take the bull by the horns and really try and connect with people who've probably got shared like-minded stories and experiences throughout the country, and try to bring them together as for a place to talk and relate. Or you could just basically still sit in the corner and really just chat amongst themselves. And when I look at people who have took the initiative to do that, it's kind of egged me on a bit, well, what's the worst that can happen? You start off with nothing. If it doesn't go anywhere, I'm not going to be any worse off than what I originally was. And I think like the wee Sunday things that I've been doing recently with the boys and just, getting different people on and having a good chinwag and talking about the topical issues throughout the week, that's just kind of what I'm aiming to do. Just, keep it relative, but as well kind of get familiar with different people, because the way I was initially going to do it was to try and get as many Scottish people on as possible and just try and create a mirror, I suppose, for people who are south of the border in Northern Ireland, Wales or whatever, just to try and create this picture that the SNP and everyone in Scotland is all for them, flag waving, all that's just a whole load of nonsense, really. And it was to try and encourage more people who, I suppose, sit in the centre ground, or if they're on at either point of the fence, just to come on and have that conversation, regardless of what people are telling you on social media or in the media. People like ourselves are very much conversationalists. We like to engage, we like to talk. We might have disagreements, but we're not these big, bad, evil people that's made out to be.
That's definitely fair regarding to that point. I think I'm trying to think about the first time I've heard about yourself. I think it must have been from No Chance, because I know No Chance was promoting you very heavily on Telegram all the time. So that's when I started to check out your content as well, and it is nice to see fellow Scots like yourself in this case, that are actually starting to go on the internet, regardless if it's YouTube or Odyssey or any other video platform, and just basically just speak their minds out. Because you're absolutely right. The way that things have been going just now, when it comes to the SNP or Scottish politics or anything like that at all, it's just getting beyond a joke at this point. And it's about time people like us, No Chance, anyone like that, just basically to start calling it for what it is exactly. Because I'm pretty sure there is this kind of idea of in terms of what the English would think of the Scottish, that all the Scots support the SNP regardless of what it is. Like the SNP are all the way pro independence and all of that. When you're right, it's the polar opposite. Nothing could be further from the truth than that. And it's just. It's more of a white pilling moment for me to see more people coming out of the woodworks. I even know some people within PA Scotland. Not going to mention any names just now, again, just for privacy's sake and whatnot. Even they've said to me recently they're planning on doing their own streams, their own videos on these platforms. And again, it's just the same reason as us. It's just to get the word out there, giving their honest to God opinions on what's really going on in this case. So again, a very major moment that's going on, and I think hopefully more and more people will be doing that throughout the coming years. So that's good to hear regarding to your position of being in this. I don't know what you want to say, but in terms of this political sphere on YouTube or anything like that. So if you don't mind me asking, Scots Armour, would it be fair to say, what would you normally call yourself when it comes to this kind of content creation? What I mean is, would you call yourself a nationalist or an ethno-nationalist or anything like that at all?
I would say I can understand the topic point of people saying in using the term ethno. I would just classify myself as Scottish with national principles, but with that, it's no really what's going through the optics of the SNP. It's just I would rather Scotland be for Scotland, but I'm more than and above board than having like-minded Brits here who reside here at this point in time, rather than having people from the EU coming over or people from further afield. Because in an, in my own opinion, I should really put it like this: for a country, in order to flourish, it has to be with its own people at the forefront of that. It's a bit of a sad day when, for example, we're being told that for example, the NHS is specially utilised when we have foreigners coming in and doing the jobs for us. It really kicks the people, I suppose, that want to be aspiring dental workers, surgeons, GPs. It can really kicks in the face and can really put off people for becoming talented within that sphere and putting their tools to the not only of their own self, but for their own people. And I think it's really like issues like that. And that's what one of my grievances has been with the European Union. Not that I have any necessarily dislike for example, the Germans, the Italians, the Spanish. I like all of them. I want them to flourish within their own countries just as well as like the BAME community. If they stay back in, like Nigeria or Iraq or Iran and do well within their own country, by all means. But that's really where I would put myself on that side of the fence. But just really quickly, mate, what you said there, no chance. Him resisting the lies, Bonnie lad, yourself. I was actually really taken aback with how open and welcoming everybody is on, I suppose, this kind of a like sphere. I thought I would really be getting thrown out into the deep end and, just plug at it, work hard, which, with anything in life, you pretty much should. But everybody's been really, really kind words, really supportive, helped me, giving me little points and tips, and sharing my stuff and give me, wee words of advice here and there with different things. And everybody who I really has gave me their time. It's honestly been appreciated. It's been really helpful as well to help my channel grow, and it's I'm going to obviously do the exact same pointers for the more people that come on. So just to quickly interject what you previously said, mate. But I hope with the nationalist thing, I've kind of summed that up, mate.
No, that definitely sums it up very well. Like I can definitely understand that point of view, especially with people here in Scotland. When it comes to the term like nationalist, I think I've been mostly using nationalist a lot more recently because whenever people say, well, especially when it comes to internet politics, like CivNats or Ethnonats or SJWs and all of that, whenever you hear the term nationalist, you think people who like are, Tommy Robinson supporters or like Danny Tomo or like I don't know if you want to say Surgeon of Smart or anything like that at all, but because that's what some people would immediately think to that. But whenever it gets to the idea of nationalism, because I really don't want to come off as like in a like bitchy mode or anything like that at all towards the CivNats, but the CivNats are not really proper nationalists, and so to speak. To me, these are people that claim to be nationalists. They're all for Britain and for the future of the British people and all of that. But when push comes to shove, they really are fully committed to it regarding to nationalism in terms of like true and proper nationalism, so to speak. So I that's just a little slight caveat to that. I wrote again. I don't want to come off as like kind of like I'm bitching about the CivNats again, that sort of thing. But I was even going to ask, like, I've explained before on my show why exactly I became an ethno-nationalist / like full-on like actual nationalist in this case because of Black Lives Matter and the debate between Ricky Doolan and Laura Tyler. Even recently, I gave a third opinion was because of the CivNats, because of that Carlin lassie I talked about in episode 5. So maybe if I can ask, was there maybe like a major red pill moment where you're just like, you know what, instead of thinking and believing this, I'm gonna go on to this side of the fence, so to speak.
Um, there's no really a, a, a one scenario answer for that question, but basically, I used to be the typical, household in Glasgow. You vote Labour because your family votes Labour, right? But when I was in modern studies at school, there was a couple of flags that went up for me in regards to the European Union. I didn't feel comfortable with the freedom of movement aspect. Sure, people can go and work and can learn different things in other parts of the European continent and stuff like that. It sounds all very nice, but in terms of looking at it through the optics of criminal behaviour, I remember being in third year at school and I had asked the teacher, the freedom of movement thing, is there any real in terms of punishment stopping people from say going from Poland to Denmark or like criminals coming over from Germany into Scotland? And I'm like, well, there is kind of restrictions per se, but there's nothing actually 100% stop making it illegal or like permanent deportation where they can't come ever back into the country. And I found that awfully strange. In all honesty, I really did. So I think in regards to looking at the EU is a problem within its own. That about 15-year-old, that's when I first started to question certain things. And over the years, looking at a lot of the stuff growing up in Glasgow, I could see that there was really fundamental problems with Glasgow, and I knew obviously that would have to be in other parts of the country as well. So I didn't really consider myself a Labour person or anything, and I never really considered myself an SNP guy, and ever thought of Scottish independence up until about 2013, I believe it was, when I joined the SNP, and I voted for independence on the basis of getting out the European Union, and obviously the vote didn't go the way it was. But in hindsight, I'm really, really, really glad that there's enough common sense that prevailed within Scotland to stop that from happening now. Because looking at the things that have came about since that vote has really been harrowing to say the least. But since that vote itself has happened, the anti, I suppose it's the full rhetoric that's surrounded the Brexit vote. Everybody's evil, everybody's Nazis, all this stuff about people that wanted to leave the European Union. The kind of contempt and disdain that you've seen from the European Parliament itself really kind of got my back up. And this might sound strange, but for the first, and I was never anti-British. I just never really thought of myself as British. But going through that full Brexit thing, it's the first time I've actually been proud to stand shoulder to shoulder and classify myself as, if you want to put a little label on it, as I would say I'm ethnically Scottish, but then I'm British because obviously we share the island with fellow brothers and sisters in England, Wales, and Northern Ireland. So then that was no, this is completely wrong. And with the SNP totally instigating things, it's obviously added fuel to the fire. And then came about obviously the likes of your Anwars, your Humzas, your BLMs, the grooming gangs. So all of this has just been basically building a bonfire up until the very point where I've just said, you know what, enough's enough. I'm really just going to have to put my neck out there and say I'm Scottish, I'm British, and our islands should be for our own native people, and the European people should have their own lands, and everything else is just nonsensical. And that's pretty much roughly maybe about 2 years after Brexit. That's when I basically totally, I suppose, formed all this logic within myself and was like, there's no going back.
Yeah, absolutely right. Just a bit of a sorry, Scots Armour. Just a bit of a clarification. So you did. So when it came to the European referendum, you did vote for us to leave the European Union. Is that correct? Yeah.
Yes.
All right, okay, well, that's fine. No, it's definitely the same with me. Like back in 2014 with the Scottish independence, I was like a yes supporter, but at the time I wasn't entirely happy with it because I was like I want Scotland to be independent. But yeah, looking back on it, I'm on the same boat as you. I'm absolutely glad that we did not leave the European. Well, leave Britain just so we can pretty much stay in the European Union because at this point in time, with IndyRef 2, talks about that going on just now, and how the S&P are just so desperate for us to become independent, but then also want us to leave the European Union. It's just getting absolutely worse and worse from there. And we could definitely talk about Hamza Youssef and all of that just a short second. But have you ever gone into any like arguments or any discussions with people who are like pro independence, but either pro independence but also want to be part of the European Union? And have you ever made points about, well, I think it's a bit kind of like a double standard of one Scotland to become an independent nation, but then also join another union? Because to me, I've had a couple of spats with people like that before, and it's not pleasant by any means because it's just. I really want to think either these people are just blatantly stupid or if they're just being completely disingenuous, because some of the points they would make is, well, countries like Germany and France, I mean, they're European countries, but they're also independent. I'm like, no, 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 they're not. They're part of the European Union. They have the euro as their currency. So even if Scotland were to become an independent country, but then move back to the EU, not only would it take us like a few years, I think it's about like what 10 to 15 years to rejoin the EU. But even then, as someone from the S&P, I think it was like an economics guy from the S&P, even said that even if we were to become an EU member, we would not be able to use the pound as currency. Instead, we would need to use the euro. So, if you ever do get in a spat with those type of people, good luck, because you will honestly just lose the amount of brain cells talking to those people. Because I just, it's again, it goes back to this whole sheer desperation of, well, we think Scotland should be independent, but we also want it to be part of the EU. So I'm just kind of curious also to know, like, have you ever yourself got into those type of discussions with people, like maybe currently or maybe in the past or anything like that at all?
Well, I can tell you this, right? I actually, see, at the time when I was an SNP member, the office for the local constituency meetings was actually closed because they were doing refurbishments. So they were using a different centre, and I was talking about issues within the local community. And if memory serves me correct, it was around funding for local clubs, and the conversation pretty much escalated into the point of where I was talking about, if there was funding for the people of the local community, surely to God, the locals should have access to certain things within their community, because they were trying to obviously make funding through the EU widely available to European citizens within Scotland for different things. For example, at that point in time, I think one of the conversations was money for every Saturday in the local community hall for kids to attend that would teach basically Polish history and, like a kind of a cultural day for Poles and stuff. We don't have that for kids in Scotland anywhere, as far as I'm led to believe, let alone within my own community. There was nothing really there for it in terms of like a football club for the boys. There was nothing there for like the girls to do, like all the type of stuff that you would have been probably brought up with. And I was really kind of pointing out, like, well, guys, should we not really be focused on making sure that our own have like kind of a stuff prioritised for them, and then once we're up and established, then maybe like, being reasonable and saying, right, well, now we can allocate funds to all these different things. There's no sense in prioritising children from somewhere else over the children of Scotland. I was basically told my views were too extreme. A couple of heated talking points back and forth, but it was mostly handbags at best. Over the marches, because that was the first kind of a like point where I had really got taken aback and thought the SNP isn't exactly what it is, and that's what led towards me leaving that party. But over the marches, whether it's been in Edinburgh, whether it been down in Dumfries, pardon me, I have been really talking to people about the whole concept of the European Union within its own. And the thing that I found incredibly strange, this was one time there was a thing over at the BBC studios in Glasgow, and there was this chapman he was talking to us about you've got to stand up to these the media tyrants because obviously they tell you all the lies and all that. And I could agree with the guy's points. And he was like, see, when we get away from England and we scrap the butcher's apron, we can rejoin our brothers and sisters in an independent setup as part of the European family. You know, use all this crappy word set. And I looked up and I says, mate, I says, can you honestly say that with a straight face? I says, you're talking about how the EU is democratic and they treat human beings with dignity and respect. And I says, they're sitting back watching the people getting the shite kicked out of them in Catalonia. Pardon my language, mate, sorry about that. But that's exactly the language that I used to him. I says, you're trying to convince people to leave a union, to join another union that advocates for it, a region of people being battled to a pulp for having a different opinion. That just screams hypocrisy to myself. And said, if anything, that would probably touch on a more anti-English rhetoric. And he was like, well, how can you say that? And I says, because you're not really laying it on thick with the bad points from Westminster as a parliament. You're just mainly talking about the flag identity. And you're looking at your European Union, you're talking all this good stuff, but you're failing to see the massive failings of the EU Parliament itself. And it was just totally like, that was the thing that was going on. You've seen it, I'm pretty sure you've seen it yourself, the people in Catalonia, the Spanish police working in and, you know, really being heavy-handed. And I says, and you're standing being an advocate for this and trying to encourage young people to support that. I says, that's more dangerous within itself. You know, that total blatant lying than what you're standing here for calling the BBC liars. And they don't want to listen. And, you know, as you touched on earlier on about the Phil Sivnat thing, I mean, we look at the issue with Hungary right now. You know, Hungary want to put laws into place themselves and pieces of legislation that's anti-LGBTQ. And they're very right to do that because they're a sovereign nation. The people are in support of that. But now we have this, what's her name, Ursula von der Leyen, coming out and saying this isn't about the EU's values and principles and all the rest of it. So the argument sake that I always use with these people when it comes to the European Union, they don't value sovereign opinion or sovereign legislation. It's the big brother setup that they're pushing for. And, you know, it's got to the point with the European Union itself where I suppose ended it still advocates for that. It's not that I will never converse with people or I will never, you know, really try and put over points because I will do. It's just, I believe it's a conversation point that's been really dragged out and become boring because there's enough proof of the pudding within itself of how completely flawed the European Union Parliament is on every single level. And it just doesn't work as a disadvantage for the Scottish or the British people, but it's also a major disadvantage to the other European nations themselves.
Well, sorry, I didn't know you. Sorry, Scots Armour. No, I definitely agree with that, especially when it comes to the rhetoric behind independence, because you're absolutely right. It definitely does come along as, and I've seen this myself like before, where it's like, oh, well, if we do become independent, then that means we're gonna, you know, get away from the English and all that. In fact, there's a video I've watched recently. I don't know if you've seen it. It's on Twitter. There was this lassie. Looks like, I mean, I know there's an old saying, never judge a book by its cover, but she's got like pinkish type of hair, glasses, I think, nose rings, you know, everything, you know, the typical look for an SJW. She made this video talking about how like Scotland needs to be independent because, you know, your ancestors, what they did to my ancestors back in, what, 700, 800 years ago, is something that we still see like today with all these like quote unquote pro hardcore, Scottish nationalists, who are, I mean, they're nationalists, but in like kind of like a naive type of way, where it's like they don't really know the full idea of what's really going on, especially with the SNP. But you're right, it's definitely this whole like anti English rhetoric. I mean, these are the type of people that would think like the film Braveheart is like the best Scottish film, but also like a documentary kind of thing. Uh, it's just I can't remember who actually said this line. I think it was Count Dankula that said it best, regarding to people who want Scotland to be independent but would still want to be part of the EU. Nicola Sturgeon basically wants to keep wearing the collar, but she just wants to have someone, a completely different owner, holding the leash or something like that. And that quote is absolutely spot on. Like, it's this idea of, oh, Scotland should be part of the EU. Well, why? The EU is a pure example of a complete bureaucracy. Most of the politicians in the EU Parliament are not voted in by the people themselves. Whether it's well, I guess you can't really say Britain anymore because we're not part of the EU anymore. But the French people, Belgian people, German, Italian, all the point is those politicians are never being brought in democratically. They're just basically in like that. And it's like, well, wait, who are these people? Like, where are they coming from? So, I just now again, I make kind of come off as if like I myself am a unionist. I'm not in any way, shape, or form. I'm not like against the union or anything like that at all. But I wouldn't call myself a unionist. If anything, I would pretty much would prefer Scotland be part of the British Union. It may not be perfect by any means with that, but I would rather have Scotland be part of Britain than be part of the EU. But again, that's only just my way of saying regarding to that. I I do think it's a bit funny. Or was it last year or was it the year before? I don't know if you remember the Scots Armour, but do you remember the European Parliament? I think that it was during the talks of Brexit, the final talks or something like that. Do you remember the European Parliament having we love you Scotland like banner or like lights flashing on the building or something like that? Don't know if I can actually be able to find that. Hold on. But I remember that, and I'm just thinking, this is just just pure cringe regarding to that sign. Hold on, I'll see if I can actually find that for you. But let me see. It's something that's on the line, along the lines of like we love Scotland, or like you're welcome to be back, or something like that. Let me see. I don't know if I'll. I'm sure I'll be able to find that because it was talked about like all the people I know personally who are like pro SNP and all of that were just like, oh, see, this is why Scotland needs to be part of the EU because of stuff like this, and it's like, yeah, okay, like you realize that even if we do become a member of the EU, they're not exactly going to be welcoming us with open arms. Well, maybe at first, but later on, they're just going to treat us like every other European nation going on just now. While I see if I can try to be able to find that. Do you want to briefly talk about Hamza Yusuf just now? Because I'm desperately trying to have him block me on Twitter. I try every single thing possible, but nothing seems to work regarding to that. So, has there been anything recent with Hamza Yusuf or anything with that? Because the only thing I've seen him talk about is like football, and I just find it funny how like a guy like him, like a Pakistani man, claims to be Scottish even though he's not ethnically speaking, but who will constantly change his ethnicity on a whim when it politically benefits him. I just think it's really hilarious how he's like, oh, I'm a pro Celtic supporter. Oh, come on, Scotland. It's like, shut up. I don't know. Do you have any opinions on Hamza Yusuf at this point in time, if you don't mind me asking?
In my own opinion, I think Hamza Yusuf is essentially the whole reason, him as an entity, I suppose, would be the whole reason of why people like myself and yourself and everybody else in the chat are actually so determined to fight for our individual ethnic sovereignty, because here we have a man who has been very well looked after, privileged by many accounts. He went to a grammar school in Glasgow. He's had every opportunity to make the best of his life. He's got a very well paid job since he's come into the Parliament. chose to obviously speak Urdu when he was being sworn in, not Gaelic or English, Urdu, which is a non-native language to anywhere on this island. Um, but in terms of how he profiles himself at times throughout his career, he's been very opportunistic. And, you know, if myself or yourself, or for example, resisting the lies, and I'm very careful what I say, if he was to, if we were to really, you know, cherry pick at certain things with our identity that suit ourselves at any given point in time, we would be cautioned and probably spoke to for incitement of hatred. And I think that tells you everything you need to know about where his politics, his agenda, and his narrative lies when he looks at the ethnic people of Scotland. And there's no really a kind word that I could use for that individual.
Yeah, I know. He really is some character, Hamza Yusuf. I'm pretty sure you've seen that video that No Chance made, and there's that clip in the video where Hamza is addressing some people in Glasgow. He's like, Glasgow, let's hear yes. It's so cringe. It's almost like what's the best example of this? It's almost like as if like an old boomer, like an old person going up to like young kids and be like, hey there, fellow kids. Like that's exactly what Hamza Yusuf is like. It's like that meme with the Steve Buscemi meme, you know, the hey there, fellow kids, so you know, type of meme or something like that. That's Hamza when it comes to the Scottish people. He tries so hard to be being part of Scotland, and then he'll change his ethnicity on, you know, for political benefit, but it's just he's not Scottish. He never will be Scottish. He's a Scottish citizen, I'll give him that. But in terms of ethnically Scottish, he's certainly not that whatsoever. So
That video that No Chance did, you know, that one that you just said, it was dire cringe. It was so, you know, you get someone at school, and by the way, I was never the popular person. In fact, I was probably the most uncool person in any crowds. I don't even think the goths would have took me at school, in all honesty. But he's like that wee weasel type person that tries to fit in with crowds, and he just overdoes it every time. And I just find him very disturbing.
Even just a quick quote here, Sir Snowy, like in Still Game, yeah, it might not be exactly that. I think it was the PlayStation, but yeah, it's that quote in the show. I like the PlayStation. Do you like the PlayStation? Yeah, it's that quote. Yeah, I definitely got that. That's exactly what Hamza Yusuf is. Like he tries so hard to like kind of fit in, but it clearly does not work whatsoever. I noticed you mentioned Anwar earlier on. Now, I tend to not like Hamza Yusuf a lot more, mainly because of, as we all know, the Scottish hate crime bill he proposed. I think it was maybe mid to late last year, and we all know that it's been proposed, and I think it's been talked about or even just been passed within the Scottish Parliament, but when it comes to Anwar, would you say maybe there's like a similar type of I don't want to say hatred, but similar type of criticism towards him with Hamza Yusuf, or would you say he's worse than Hamza Yusuf?
I believe he's worse.
Oh.
I do. I believe he's worse, and the reason why I believe he's worse is because I think he's more coy than Hamza. See, Hamza can get away with it because he's in the largest party in Scotland, and he's obviously been able to use his minority card to the greatest extent. But let's not be fooled, Amar isn't an unintelligent man. He's a very clever individual. He's been educated at a really good level. And I think with the undertones that he's carried out, see, Amar as well also stood in the Scottish Parliament and used the whole white scenario as well. It never got as much as of a blow up as what Hamza did. But I really think he's a character that you should definitely keep your eye on, because I think especially over the next couple of years, I said this before, I think the SNP is going to blow up. I think they're over the hill now. It's just race to the bottom of the barrel with them. And over the course of the next maybe about year to 2 years, I think you'll probably find a lot of split opinions within Scottish politics. So it might actually give a bit of rebuff to Labour. And I think when Labour gets a bit of momentum behind them, you will start to see this darker side to his game, and it will be more brutish than what Hums has been in previous years, because by that point they will have much more of a voting bloc as a people and as a group of collectives of the BAME community for him to be allowed to go out and appease these peoples with that anti-Scottish rhetoric.
Yeah, like the only well, and I know there's really no point of really asking this, but this whole thing about people like Hamza and Anwar, who come to the country, I'm obviously they said years back, back in the day, but then we'll go out with it, regardless of like demographics or anything like that at all. Like, say, Scotland has always been a very open and welcoming country for all walks of life. Now, for Hamza and all of, and crew, the people who criticize the country, there's too much white people. There's a lot of systematic racism going on in the country just now. And I know there's really no point of asking this because we all ultimately know the answer. But if Scotland or anyone else in the UK or any other European country or even in America for that matter, if these countries are so bad, so fascist, so oppressive and all of that, why not they just pack their bags and just go back to their ancestral homelands? The answer to that is, we all know why exactly, is because they are desperate. And of course, people will, and when I say this, people will end up saying, oh, you just sound like a major conspiracy theorist, but there's this anti-white rhetoric going on in these countries just now, and they really want us replaced as soon as humanly possible. For, of course, as I talked about before, the prediction by Dr. David Coleman from Oxford University of the whole, if the current trends continue the way they are with mass migration, of course, less white birth rates within the country, then the white British population will become a minority by 2066. But I even seen people mention this to me before. If the trends continue the way they are, and it looks like they're continuing the way they are just now, instead of 2066, maybe there's a possibility it's going to be even like sooner than that. Maybe 2055, maybe even before that. So I think with people like Hamza and all of that, they are trying their best to try and slowly but surely replace the native people of this country, whereas it's not an original point. It's a point brought up by people like No Chance and all of that. I made at this point before, but could you even imagine? Well, we can all imagine what would happen, but just for this part here, can you even imagine if you, as a white Scottish man, as a politician, moving over to another country, say India, for example, right? You go to the Indian parliament or place of politics. I'm sure it would be like a parliament in this case, telling the Indian people, hey, I, as a Scottish man, part of this political sphere, I think there's too many Indian people within India. I think we should open the borders and bring more people into the country. Do you think that will ever happen? Of course not. It's a completely laughable and ludicrous idea, and so much so they would pretty much kick you out of the country and send you back to where you came from. But all the stuff that's going on just now is happening mainly in these European countries. So it may come off as a bit of a, well, not a bit, but as a major black pill. But as we mentioned before, the more people that come into this movement, regardless if they're like ethno-nationalists or just Scottish nationalists or anything like that at all, whether they're part of a political party or not, the more people that come out of the woodwork talking about this, and I think the more people like us are going to be resisting in this case. I know that may sound incredibly silly to say resisting, especially when it comes to us content creators, but it's really about time for us to really get ourselves out there and actually call it for what it is in this case. So do you want anything to add to that? Because I've got the image, the Europe Love Scotland image. Before I show that, any other thoughts you want to share about that just now, Scots?
Aye, if you don't mind. I believe they come over here because our countries, Europe, in general as a continent, is no slightly. It's much better than their own homelands. There is not even any comparison. It might sound like an ignorant thing to say. It might sound like a bit of a idiotic thing to say if you were obviously talking with someone on the other side of the fence. But if you look at us, we've got a continent that effectively is self-sustaining, that can feed itself, a country that's been built up over the millennia. A lot of the best inventions of the and the best brains that has ever came across the human race has came from Europe. Europe as a continent pretty much shaped the world. And all the best institutions, all the best infrastructure is within Europe. There is no even any point debating this. I mean, I know you get proud Americans, and America as a country on paper is pretty much a great place, but America, for what it is to what it is in paper, are two different entities. And with the greatest respect to the people who come over to our countries and tell us the A, B's, and C's of things, they're only over here because there's a small group internationally that have created this false sense of victimhood onto them that comes over here, and they're trying to pull a Hollywood story on us that everyone, effectively loves the underdogs, and the underdog triumphs and saves the day. And it's a kind of a rhetoric that's been echoed throughout of Europe for the last number of years, that our so-called new saviours, you'll get them a lot of publicity on the TV, for example. I don't know if you can recall, Dales in the chat can recall, seeing one of the new Frenchmen climbing up, I think it was like 5 or 6 stories in France to save a child, because the child was in a position where it looked like it was going to fall over the veranda. And these are just sort of the insidious undertones that they have really been laying on thick and fast over the years to try and condition people to be more accepting of this, because that doctor saved you. If it wasn't for them, well, you would be paying breed. If it wasn't for that, counsellor who's been trying to get into office recently, you wouldn't have got that scholarship or apprenticeship, or you wouldn't have been given that housing situation. So I think the more that we have to do, I agree with that. We have to get out. We have to network and stuff like that. But we have to arm ourselves with the best possible tool that's at our disposal, and that's knowing the government's policies. And if you can manage to cram it in, because like my brain just won't allow it, because there's that many different types of laws. Try and utilise local law knowledge so that you can be kept right at all times, because the more that you'll find yourself in predicaments with organisations who are more pro BAME, or police officers, or education boards. If you know the local laws, that will be the best tool that you can use at your disposal at any given situation, so that you can never be pinned against a wall through coercion and institutional bullying.
No, definitely right. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Absolutely. I've been noticing stuff in the chat as well in terms of like terminologies, in terms of like white or Scottish or anything like that. Like for example, resisting the lies. He writes, if you say you're white Scottish or white British, it opens the door to black Scottish or black British. I'm not white. It's an umbrella term for Europeans at this point. But I'm not white. In fact, even goes on to say like, I'm Scottish kind of thing. So I could definitely see his point there, where in terms of like the terminology. Even of course, I'm pretty sure he maybe responded to someone in the chat. Well, I'm Scottish, not white. That could be like a counter argument to someone like Hamza Youssef, who, like you're Scottish, but how would I want to like kind of like say it kind of thing? It's like you're like ethnically Scottish kind of thing, where it's like the whole. It's even kind of also kind of brought up within the debate between Laura and Ricky Doolan, where you have like like the like oh well, what about like black people living or born in this country, are they British? Like no, they're African, because of the whole African descent kind of thing with that. I don't want to like misinterpret what Resisting the Lies is saying in the chat or anything like that. I hope that's what it's trying to say regarding to that. Even William in the chat here, it just popped up saying Scottish first, white second, that sort of idea. What also said, It's more safe not to say I'm white Scottish because again it opens the door to black Scottish. Right, I could definitely see that. So,
It
I
kind
could
of
definitely see that.
leads to the point. Sorry, it leads to the point
Yeah.
where, like, if you use that, you could use that in immigration, where you could turn and say, well, you've got people who work within the NHS or the fire services that say that come from Nigeria or Thailand or somewhere else. If you make an exception on terminologies and definitions to one, then by extension you've got to do that with other groups of people. And I can totally understand that point. That's why I had said earlier, I would say that I'm Scottish first and foremost because I'm Scottish, but I'm also proud to be Scottish. I think people who necessarily come over from like Jamaica or like Africa and they call themselves Scottish, and I'm like, well, you're not. Like, you're African. Like, say like you're ethnically Cameroonian, you should be proud to be ethnically Cameroonian. Don't try and dilute your personal identity for something else for the sake of labelism, which is obviously an internationalist ploy at best. I think people in Britain would more than likely turn around and say, for example, I'm Scottish, I'm English, I'm Northern Irish, I'm Welsh, first and foremost. And anyone who kind of tries to look over that would probably be doing themselves an injustice for whatever country they were born into. The term British is obviously, I would go in and say that that's a hat for obviously the people of our islands, obviously just on a constitutional setting that we've obviously been in the union for over the years. That's just of my own opinion. I'm not saying that's how it is. This is just from my own perspective. But I think first and foremost, when you have the conversation with people, you kind of really need to put that point out there so that they're actually aware. Because you might get people like for example, that are like, yeah, I'm white, you know, and and they might be pro immigration or they might be pro EU, but then when you start talking about, like you says there, with the 2066 thing with immigration and ethnic numbers. If you turn around and point out, for example, the world's global population of Caucasian people, there's give or says like 8%. If you break that down to people that are ethnically Scottish, what's that going to be sitting at? Like 0.04%, because Scotland's give or take about 5-6 million people. So I think people really need to play more on their own ethnic diversity, on their own ethnic identity, to drill home the point that no one can be this unless you are of this. There's a certain uniform to it. And it's not to be disparaging, but an African who resides, say, like I said, in Cameroon, they should be more inclined to say, no, I'm Cameroonian first and foremost, then African.
Yeah, I just hope that I could definitely see that point as well, because again I just keep noticing the chat as well too that hopefully there's not any too much argument going on within the chat just now, because even what you said earlier on, Scots Armour, with that in terms of that, whether I would call myself white, what I would call myself Scottish, and all of that, there may be some stuff that maybe in the chat might disagree or anything with that at all, but ultimately we have something in common, which is we want England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland, or in this case, to have to remain to their native people within those nations. So, just also real quick, let me see, because I found that image I was talking about earlier on. Let me see if I can share that just now. Again, I'm sure you may have seen this before, and also the chat may have seen this as well. With this image here, is this one. Europe Loves Scotland, which of course, funny enough, it turned out that it was all just like a big publicity stunt for Europe. If it even says, Europe Loves Scotland Brussels symbol paid for by SNP despite party claiming the EU Commission was behind it. So even the European Union were not entirely too bothered to have Scotland back in the EU. But the SNP are just desperate for us to basically want us to believe that Europe really wants us back, but it's just so cringe regarding to that. I'm curious because at the beginning of the chat, people brought this up earlier on, but did you watch the Scotland games last week on Friday and this past week by any chance?
No. The reason why I didn't, in fact, I was on the night where, who was it was playing? I think Scotland was playing, but Bonnie Lad, Sensum and Scottish Tam were on, and there was a game on, and I was on for that, but I had to end up jumping off stream to go and deal with the wee fella. See, this might sound stupid or ignorant or childish. See, going into the tournament because it was the first tournament that we'd been in like years. I was kind of optimistic, going, right, do you know what, I'm going to watch it because I gave up on domestic football through reasons we can go to them later on if you want. But I was like, do you know what, I'm quite glad. And then when I had seen on No Chance's Telegram, Scotland's no taking a knee, I thought to myself, fantastic. This is exactly what you want to see before you get into a tournament. Not just to get it up, it's just to go out, put all that crap to the side. You're wearing the squad tap, get out there, belt out that anthem, and play your socks off. Doesn't matter what happens with the results as far as I'm concerned. But then see, when they had announced that they were only going to take the knee for the England game,
Yeah.
I was totally sickened of it because to me that's more cowardly. You've set out to do something and then bowed to peer pressure. As a group of men within that room, when they've had that discussion, they've agreed on that. Then they've been manipulated through, perhaps, let's say, Sturgeon and whatnot. So I was just like, I hope they get gubbed every game from that point.
Nah. Well, you know what I think is incredibly ironic about that? Whether it's to do with this game or even for years, whether how I've grown up or how you've grown up, you know how we always hear about Scotland are very rebellious to the English, like up the English and all of that in this case, and here we have a football game between Scotland and England, and I know it has happened in the past before, but it always keeps bringing up in terms of our old school rivalry with England and all this and that. Now, you think when it comes to taking the knee, this whole gay stuff about, we're so against racism and we're supporting Black Lives Matter. It's like, shut up. Because I was actually pretty surprised at the news myself, where Scotland were going to take a stand. Even though it's still pretty cringy, stand up against racism and all that. But at least I was like, wow, they're not actually taking a knee this time around. But yeah, because of the amount of peer pressure coming along, because I think it was all to do with social media. I've even seen some people were just like, "Oh, how come Scotland would never take the knee for BLM? Are they like supporting racism or something like that?" And it's just like, why is taking the knee such this universal symbolism for support? I mean, for Christ's sake, this whole taking the knee is a symbology of conformity, which is, again, like I said before, I find it so hilariously ironic of Scotland being so we're against England, and we're what England does, we're the polar opposite, we're rebellious, blah blah blah, but then we decide to take the knee with them in solidarity for to be against racism and all of that. And I was exactly the same boat as you. I was at that point forth, I'll still watch the games, but I will not be as supportive with the Scottish team after that. Especially when I was watching the games, especially with the English game, the amount of just seeing those advertisements is a prime example of why I refuse to watch mainstream television anymore, and why I would always watch content on YouTube or Odyssey or DLive, BitChute, you name it, sort of thing, because the amount of diversity advertisements and everyone can join in the game, even female Muslims with their hijabs on could be referees and all of that, and I'm just like, I'm sorry for swearing, but I'm just like, what the fuck is this? Is this what fucking Scottish football has become now? Where it's I know people have said in our circle, have said, there's so much diversity within advertisements. I mean, I knew it was going to be bad, but I never realized just how bad it really got. It was just, I was just watching, sitting on the couch in awe of just the amount of just cringe pouring out in these diversity advertisements. You got all the stuff like women's football, which, let's be honest, no one really watches them to begin with, but you got all of the joggers appearing left, right, and centre, as if they're part of the team and all of that, and all other types of nationalities and ethnic groups and all of that. And there's barely there's some white people there, but it's mainly white women. You never see any straight white men appearing. I don't know if you saw any gay people in those advertisements, but I was just I was just completely taken aback to them. I was just honestly in awe of what I've just watched. So, but that happened with the English game, and after the Croatia game, which was a pretty interesting game because it was 1-1 at first between two teams, but then Croatia decided to score two more goals after that, meaning it's 3-1. And I just kind of looked at that as like karma for what happened with Friday. Because, see, with this past Friday, with after the English game, it was, of course, the draw between the two teams. What was your opinion on seeing people from Scotland who were just like, oh, we might not have won the game, but we draw, but we still got that point, and kind of having all this like sheer bragging rights towards the English, like because I've seen so many of that from so many people, and it was just absolutely cringe to see that. But do you have any thoughts on that, Scots Armour?
Aye, 2 points. First point being, it was very American. You know, like when you see the American Sports Day and they get like an 8th place ribbon, they're like, "Well, good job, guys, and taking part." You know, it's like it was unbelievable. And the second point, Nicola Sturgeon's plaque. I was First Minister when Scotland drew 0-0 with England. I thought that was pretty cringe.
Wait, was this on Twitter? Because I've never seen that.
No, mate. It's clown world Scotland. This is just I'm expecting to see this. This is how bad we've got with celebrating a 0-0.
Yeah.
And I'm going to put in that victory, you know, because like, England never wins, so somehow by default it's a victory. It's just
Yeah, it's
the whole point of like Scotland England.
Oh, you still there, Scott Armour?
No, sorry mate, sorry for cutting in.
Oh, don't worry, it's fine. Sorry, but you were saying sorry about that.
I like see the whole point with the Scottish and English thing, right? Like I've got much love for the English people. Like effectively they're brothers and sisters. Football's just one of those things that we use to rub each other up and down the wrong way for a bit of back and forth. You go on the pitch, you play your socks off. If you win, you win. If you don't, you don't. The person gets bragging rights and you buy the first round in the pub. That's it, period. But this over sensationalised and over hyperised viewing that came out of that game afterwards, you know, it's just the whole concept of that old enemy game, kind of like a Celtic and Rangers thing. Like, if Celtic and Rangers fans were in the streets dancing or not after a 0-0, like, I'm pretty sure like they'd have got laughed at, and that's what essentially happened in Scotland. The football fans have made themselves a laughing stock with going to such antics.
I was even gonna say as well with that whole like bragging rights, like oh like no, but we remain victorious with England. It's like, so I was just thinking, so basically you guys support mediocrity at this point, like. It doesn't matter like we scored or we drew with England. The fact of the matter is we drew with England, but that's still like yeah. It's really sad, isn't it? Like just because you're right. It's saying that if this was like years back, if this was like maybe back in the 90s or the early 2000s, this would have been absolutely laughed at. It's just like mate, what are you even talking about? You didn't actually win the game. But nowadays it's like, well, we might not have officially won the game, but it's still like a victory to us kind of thing. And it's like I'm pretty sure they made some of those like people would bring up the whole, oh well, this is like a payback for our ancestors kind of thing, like all that kind of cringe stuff you hear like constantly from these people. But with the game with Croatia, I did see that more as like a like a way of like a karma kind of thing. Because I remember I did watch that game as well, and you just see the crowd reactions from every post that 1-1 goal, and then Croatia scored for the second time. You just see the amount of people like, in the Scottish seats were just sitting in complete utter silence, because it's like reality has started to kick in with regard to those complete like goals, but. And then of course you see like Hamza Yusuf and Nicola Sturgeon on Twitter ever since that Croatia game. We're just like oh boys, you know, you all have been like fantastic, you know, with this whole UEFA Euro 2020, which I don't know why they would call it 2020 when it's 2021, but that's beside the point. And it's just like, again, you people are just supporting mediocrity at this point because, and now again, I'm not like a football fan myself. I don't support any particular team. I mean, if it's a Scotland game, I might be be able to watch it. But after that whole advertisement stuff with the English game, I'm not going to be watching it more anytime soon. But even watching those games and seeing how the players played, I was just completely. I was like, they could have played way better than that. I mean, sure, you had some guy scoring for Scotland with the Croatia game, but even then, it's like they definitely could. Excuse me, they definitely could have played so much better compared to how they played recently with those two games. But hey, that's just me. But I don't know. I guess like football at this point, it's just become utter cringe, especially with the whole kneeling stuff. But I don't know. That's just me.
No, I can relate to that, mate. As I said to you earlier, I was really put off with domestic football. And it's been boiling. Well, it's been simmering up to the boil before I decided to do away with my season ticket and all the nonsense that was going on week after week, and I'm going into the stadium and watching all the crap unfold in front of us before COVID. I was just giving my head a shake because I'm like, I really can't take much more of this crap that's been spewed out. Not just to average football fans, but to kids in general. It's like a pure whole environment to suck kids into like, a whole new world of perverted propaganda. And I've touched on that in other streams that I've done on my own channel, mate. And that's how, like, I was really deflated with football. And then when Scotland got into the competition, I thought, right, that's fair enough. I might give it a wee watch just because it's your national country. But like I says, when I had seen that, I really shook my head. But then, we've got this boy up front that looks like Apollo Creed's brother. Where did they pull Huffy? Because during the qualifying campaign, this chap was nowhere to be seen. It's like they've just walked out to somewhere in Glasgow and went, right, son, you've got a game, there's a strip.
Yeah, it's the more like the non-whites becoming members of these particular teams, yeah. It's kind of also sad to see because there's old footage of old football games and you see all the players are majority white. Throughout the years, there maybe have been like a jogger here and there, but now it's just like it's pretty much Africa at this point. They're just overtaking our own national teams, and it's just really sad to watch at this point. But
Do you know something? See, I can't say from a footballing point of view, Scotland's ever been blessed, right? Like the teams that I've grew up watching have not. There's been good players, but as a team, they've just not been very good. But see, if I was English, right? English people might not agree with this, but just talking sake, I would be so annoyed. See, watching the England teams, growing up as a boy, to when I really stopped watching football, the players at the fed of the years, Michael Owens, Sheringham's, Gerrards, Gascoigne's, Tony Adams and whatnot, David Seaman and goal. They've always had a quality, proud English lineup, and it's there's a shadow of their former self. And like you said, it's not even England that you're watching, and you think to yourself like, right, okay, this is Scotland starting to like shape up. I know Wales is kind of ahead, like people in and out the team that haven't really been Welsh. And obviously, with the amount of people that are in Ireland, that's just waiting to blow up as well. So it's quite sad to see because kids in the family and kids for people who are in the chat, they're not going to watch a national side that's going to mirror the players and the history that we've watched up, through the years. It's all going to be a whole new entity for them. And they're probably maybe going to look and be into football for different things, but then they're going to be maybe ask themselves the question of why is their dads, their brothers, their uncles, and so on so disengaged with football?
It's just like again. I know it may come across as like we're blackpilling, but it's just stating the truth at this point, really. So yeah, again, unless we do something about it, like speaking out against it, it's only going to get worse from here at this point. So, what time is it now? It's 7:15. We can still do it for another 15 or maybe another half an hour regarding to that. But has there been anything going on that you wish to talk about, Scots Armour, or anything like that at all?
Seeing quite honest with you, Moody, I'm not the most exciting shit up in the world. I very much just take one day at a time, because I could have 3-4 days of just peace and quiet, and then the next 10 days it's just a whirlwind of different things and different nonsense. So I don't really. I just try and keep up to date with all the ongoing, so I know what lies ahead in Rainbow Unicorn Land, as DJ would put it. Yeah, but yourself?
It's just I'm in kind of like a good place at the moment. So far, even though I'm only just doing when it comes to like YouTube and all the stuff on the internet kind of a thing. I'm just really in a good spot right now, so hopefully it might get a lot better later on. But I got like tons of ideas that I really want to do in terms of like not just like live streams, but like videos like in and of themselves. But the problem with that is I just don't have enough time on me, because I'm dedicated to working outside of YouTube. But I mean, if there does come a time where if I'm off or I'm really available, I might be able to do something with that. Just a quick mention here. Scottish Tam. Sorry, Trip's got to go. Check on Bonnie Lad. I'll pop back soon. No more Scottish Tam. You take care for now. Resisting lies. Anti-racist education. Go on, vent. Well, that's actually a good point. We could talk about anti-racist education. Maybe we could definitely talk about that, because especially with stuff with the whole critical race theory, which I'm sure that might get brought into Scottish education system. This whole idea of like us white people need to feel guilty for the sins of our past and the sins of our ancestors and all of that, what we did to my black person and all of that. Especially as I covered that episode 5 of this podcast with again that last scene was Carlin, but she really looks like Meg from Family Guy, but that's beside the point. Because for some odd reason, again, I don't know if it's fair to say that going back to the whole Sivnat thing, she would call herself a Sivnat, but she's one of those American content creators who's like an up and coming conservative, quote unquote. Put it this way, she was on the show Trigonometry, so I think that should speak for itself in regard to the type of person we're talking about here. But she recently made this video talking about critical race theory, how it has nothing to do with race, especially like anti-white rhetoric regarding to it, but it's anti-everybody, and it's just so cringe seeing someone like that making that point, because you don't have to be like an ethno-nationalist or even just a nationalist for that matter to look at critical race theory and think, holy shit, this is pretty anti-white. It's like anyone and their mothers can see what this is all about, but I don't know, is that something that you want to talk about just now? Because that's something that's been popping up a lot more recently regarding to critical race theory.
Just before I go on here, I just let me know before I start talking, because I don't want to sound incredibly stupid. But critical race theory within itself is a talking point that every race, it's not just white, it's black, Chinese, Oceaniac races and all the rest of it. Every race is basically racist by nature.
Right, with critical race theory. I mean, I really, I don't know, man, but from what I've been told from many people that it may have something to do with that, with critical race theory, but ultimately speaking, it's very anti-white. Because when it comes to the teachers and people within the education system teaching like kids and like young people about this, it never talks about anything to do with blackness or brownness or anything like that at all. It's specifically talking about whiteness and criticizing and critiquing and doing the whole deconstruction of Western European culture and civilization in regard to that, especially talking about the past, slavery and all of that. It's just like,
Right, no, do you know something?
yeah,
See, when you done your stream on it, I think I said in the comments. I'm not sure if I did, but I think I might have. I'm pretty like seen terms of like the YouTube and doing a lot of stuff. Like the podcast that you mentioned that she was on, I'm not. It's not ignorance. I just don't have the faintest idea who they are. I'm like the newborn baby that's still got the smell and stuff on. I've still got to go out and explore this side of YouTube. But on that the critical race area, I just it's something that I've blitzed over, but not entirely actually read into depth of it. I'm not surprised to see that a thing called critical race theory, being utilised as a tool to try and I suppose sanitize the minds of this replacement issue for young impressionable minds in the Western world and particularly in Europe. It's something that I think with obviously kids can be a lot more emotional leaning with a lot of tendencies when they use when especially people to look up to like teachers for example. A lot of kids will confide in teachers and they'll look up to them because they spend basically a lot of their everyday lives with them in an institutionalised setup. They've all got the tables there, so they'll form like their little cliques within the class, and the teacher's sort of like the captain of the team. So these kids are pretty much putting their trust in the teacher, and their teachers, using this as like a drip method into accustoming them that when they grow up and their parents or their friends or their neighbours start formulating their own ideas and their own identity, their own sovereign ethnic identity, that's wrong, and that should be criticised, it should be pointed out, and it should be called out for all people to know. And I think it's a slippery slope because ultimately, with that, it's going when you take effectively the white person out the game. Just put us to the side, right? Because we're the lowest of the populations in ethnic makeup in the world. But who's it going to be the battle of? The blacks, the Indians, the Asians. This is where it's going to go down because it will effectively come down to a dog eat dog world. And with the way these people are for the lands that they come from, because they're pretty they're not socially, adapted. Like there's a lot of like hardened people and a lot of really horrible people within your society, but they're still pretty much tribal in Africa and parts of India and like out in the outer cities, I should say, like in China and stuff like that. In that full part of Asia. So what happens next with this full theory in terms of who puts themselves above who on the chain? Because the Chinese won't lie down to the Africans won't lie down to the Chinese, the Indians won't lie down to the Chinese, and so on and so forth. And I think what they're doing there in a ridiculous sort of a fashion is they're going to open up Pandora's box that they just aren't equipped to deal with.
Oh yeah, definitely. I've just noticed the thing that it's just been something that's been blowing up recently regarding to CRT and also with Carlin. Carlin, I think her last name is Borisenko, I think you pronounce her last name. There's just a quick question from the chat by a snowman. I think I've seen him in the chat before. They write, do you lads think violence in Northern Ireland could spread to Scotland? That's a pretty good question. What do you think of that? Scots Armour, do you agree with that or disagree with that?
Well, I think growing up in the city that I grew up in, there's a lot of sectarian violence that kind of like comes from Ireland with turns between the Republicans and the Brits. You've got like people who, and I suppose it's even delved its way into the football world. There's no two ways of getting away from it. But I hope if there is going to be an escalation of Irish violence that comes over there, because I'm not entirely sure, see, I don't want to comment on something that I'm not too clued up about, but if this is pretty much the Irish fighting against themselves, I hope that it doesn't, but at the same time, I hope that them as brothers and sisters fundamentally see themselves as each other, and religious thing can be put to the side and just base it as Christianity, because the term, Protestant, Catholic, it is, no matter what way you look at it, it is Christianity first and foremost, and they need to put their faith in their people front and centre without this divide, because in Glasgow, and I think in large parts of Ayrshire, especially on the west coast of Scotland, this has been going on for hundreds of years, that segregated and divided communities that have been fractured and probably will need the longest time to repair. And that's only as a collective, as people, that's only going to make us in a much weaker position. We need our brothers and sisters on the same page, whether it be Catholic, Protestant, whether it be Scottish, English, Welsh, or Northern Irish, and even Southern Ireland on its own part. We all need to be on the same page with everything. And once we finish what we need to do, then we can go into our own developments and pretty much do what we need to do after that. But until then, that's what the focus should be on.
I definitely agree. Definitely. I mean, I don't know if any violence like that would happen in Scotland, especially when it comes to Glasgow. But then again, you know, Glasgow as a city, I mean, especially there, has had a huge history of, as you pointed out, of sectarianism between Protestants and Catholics, especially with the teams like teams like Celtic and Rangers. So, I mean, I hope it doesn't happen. I don't know if it will happen, but then again, because of the previous history in Glasgow, I wouldn't be surprised if something like that were to happen. But you never know. Maybe something doesn't happen. Maybe it might, but hopefully that it doesn't escalate to that. But it's just really a case of, like, a matter of just waiting and see regarding to that, of course. What I just want to briefly touch upon is I want to kind of go back to Karlin Borisenko just for a brief minute, right? Because I know, Scots Armour, you said you watched my episode 5 about that, where I basically just tore this woman a whole new one in response to her critical race theory is not anti-white, idea, which CRT is completely anti-white. Of course, if you haven't seen that video, you can definitely go back to episode 5 in the video section with that. But just to go back to that, just real briefly, I have been going back onto her channel to see what she's been doing, and she's doing what every YouTuber should never ever do, which is, if you make a video and it's having like a poor response to it, especially towards like a community such as ours, who are very for our people and for like about the wanting to maintain white people to have a sense of existence, a right to exist, a right to self-determination and all of that. And then, of course, you have Karlin, who makes a video about CRT, how it's not anti-white. She's just been constantly making stream after stream after stream of just completely just going out of her way, just making her look even worse and worse and worse, and just trying to... Basically, she's like someone who goes to a park and then notices a bear and just grabs a stick and just keeps poking at the bear, and then when the bear retaliates, they then act like the victim. But then also will make a point about, she gained victory or some cringe like that. Well, looking through her channel, there was one stream she did with a few people coming into the stream via Discord, I think it is. Basically, people who are disagree with her, and the most civilized as humanly possible about that, coming onto her channel and talking about that. There was one point which I thought was very interesting during a talk with a guy named Patrick she brought on briefly. So, to give you a bit of a context with Karlin, she's meant to be this up-and-coming, quote-unquote, conservative talking point, but she's, I guess you would say, more of like a centrist type, so she's neither liberal nor conservative, but the way she's been acting recently, she acts more like a leftist or an SJW rather than someone you expect from our side to act like. But what came out recently regarding to that is she claims to be she made videos in the past talking about immigration, how we need to reduce and all of that. In this case, you know what she did quite a while. I don't know if it was like a while back, but at some point in her life, she basically married an illegal immigrant, which I think is really interesting. I even got this video up to prove that point, because it brought up by the guy Patrick, who appears on this show real quick. So do you mind if I can play this part real quick, if that's okay with you, Scots Armour?
Fire away, mate.
That's no worries. So I got to a certain point about that because I just think it's so interesting. Again, I know it seems like it's kind of like I'm going back to talking about Carlin again, especially as I already talked about her in the previous episode. But I just think it's really funny seeing someone like Carlin claim to be something like she wants to claim to be like a conservative and all this and that, but ultimately she's basically a leftist. That's what she's coming down to, and the only reason she's coming into the conservative movement or conservative movement as she works for PragerU is she's only doing it for money. How do I know this? Because when I criticized her video where she has a complete spergfest about us, nationalists or ethno-nationalists, or as she would call us, white supremacists, and making comparisons with the Ku Klux Klan. Of course, she would make something like that. But let me just play this part real quick. Now, I don't know if I got to the segment here, but basically, the guy Patrick, he brings up the point about how she married an illegal immigrant. But let me just see if I can just full screen that. So I'll just play this part real quick.
Type of values I would like this country to have.
God damn it. So let me just play this part real quick, and then we'll just get back onto that just now. So let me just mute as well, and then we'll see.
I do not believe that a white identitarian movement is a positive move for the country. I do not think it's a good thing. I will not support it. If you want to be a part of it, that's your choice. We all have to make our own decisions.
And there's nothing morally wrong with it.
I think we all live different lives. You are here for a different purpose than I am. We all come here with a different purpose. We all come here with a different thing we're supposed to do, with different lessons that we're supposed to learn. That's what I believe anyway. And your lessons or your experience in this life could very well be part of this white identitarian movement, and that's your choice. But am I going to sit back and just like, okay, white identitarians take over the country? Fuck no, because I don't want that experience in this country. You get one more question. You get one more question.
Is the fact that you're married to an illegal immigrant, do you think that maybe colors your perspective on all of this?
Well, it's not illegal. We had 2 interviews with ICE and they blessed him. So wasn't
he illegal at one point in time?
Yeah, well, he was not. He was out of status, yeah. And then he was put back, and then he was.
These are the type of people who are worming their way into conservatism, trying to establish themselves as
not a conservative.
They weren't here in 2016. They weren't here in.
Bing! I told him he got one more question, and now Patrick gets banned. I feel like
back onto that just now. So yeah, that's pretty much Carlin. So yeah, I think we definitely at least I definitely should move on from that, because I've said my piece about her. I just think it's really interesting that why she would have this perspective of this anti-white rhetoric is because she married an illegal immigrant. But again, that's all been done and dusted. Let's just move on. Well, at least I'll move on from that. So enough said regarding to that. So let me just have a quick look at the chat and see what's been said here. Stan, oh, hello Stan one. I think I've seen you before in the chat, but I think it's been like a long while back. Sir Snowy, she's just in need of a good scene too by a man. Chief, step up, take one for the lads. What with her? Fuck no. I'm sorry.
You would need a medal, brother.
Yeah, I think I would definitely need that, but no, just seeing her. I know there's a whole never judge a book by its cover, but see, when you're watching that Scots Armour, when you're watching Carlin there, do you not think of Meg from Family Guy? Because I don't know why no one ever brings that up, because when I look at her, I'm just thinking she looks like a real life equivalent of that character, like from Family Guy called Meg. The one that nobody likes, like whenever she speaks, is someone like Peter Griffin is like, "Shut up, Meg," or something like that. But I don't know why no one ever brings that up. I'm just thinking, am I the only one who thinks that she looks like that character? But maybe that's just me, but who knows? So
I think it might be the traits, the way she is, and you just think, shut it, and you're saying it that much, like, it's just kind of like she's personified Meg in form right in front of you. But,
yeah.
See, when you made a lot of points about her on your stream the other day, but I think she's completely ignorant, because she says there in that video about a white movement in America, right? But the thing that I find like mind-boggling with that is, see, like actually the first Congress that happened in like 1790. It basically states, and look, I think it's like literally section 1, if I'm correct, that the House of Representatives had effectively passed that the terminology they used was alien, but basically any person who was white who has resided within America's borders for 2 years basically became a citizen. So like that's written legislation that was passed, agreed, signed on, and put away. The whole platform of America was to be white, and for her to come out and completely refute that country's identity for a so-called conservative, it's pretty much proof of the pudding and everything that you will need to know about that individual.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the way she's acting right now, I'll just make this point real quick. The way she's acting just now, I've just seen it multiple times on YouTube, but it's the same song and dance to me. These types of people that come into a movement, regardless of which movement it is, liberal, conservative, far left, like Antifa kind of thing, or far right, all this and that. For my whole thing, and I've said this piece before, but what I do appreciate in people is that they come onto a platform, they speak their minds out, they're definitive of where they stand politically, and as long as they're consistent with it. Now, I know there's the idea of people may change over time, they may change their opinions on certain things, they may be consistent with a certain thing. That's completely fine. What I'm trying to get at here with someone like Carlin, if you're going to come on a platform, again, especially when it comes to YouTube and politics, and you, regardless of where you stand politically with that, as long as you're consistent with that, don't be like Carlin in this case, or don't be like people like, I don't know if you may know these people in the past, but don't be like people like Baked Alaska who try to come into the movement, but then completely showing their true colors as soon as they move to California or anything like that at all. Because the thing is, I see myself as like a proper conservative type, so I'm very traditionalist on certain things when it comes to like marriage and all of that. And to see like people like Carlin who come into a movement, in fact, I don't know if you said it in the chat earlier on, but they said it best. Sense of Community even said it. They said, belonging to a conservative party does not make someone conservative. Just look at the Tory party since 1991, which is very true in this case. Just because you apply yourself into a political group doesn't mean you are that type of person. So I think with Carlin, it's a case of she just comes into a movement because it's very popular at the moment, and she's getting a lot of success. I mean, before I did that stream, she had about 111,000 subscribers, but now she's sitting at 110,000 subscribers, or 110,000 subscribers, and it's just like, the reason for that being is because it's just the way she's acting, and she just keeps running her mouth, and nobody is actually taking the time to actually pull her to the side and says, listen, you're fucking up left and right, you need to stop. It's just I'm sorry, I know it seems like I keep talking about Carla, but it's just, the more she keeps doing that, she's just going to make herself look like a massive lolcow, and nobody will have done that to her, by the way. She will have done this to herself, as I mentioned this point in that previous episode, but again, that's the long story short regarding to that part there, so so is there anything else you want to briefly talk about Scots Armour or anything like that at all?
Sorry, I hate to do this, right? But like, see what you had said there about that lassie trying to make money.
Yep.
Like she's in it for the shekels. Like, what you could probably find with the situation is like, she's probably said something that she's always been grounded in her beliefs. And as much as we can all look at her and go, well, that's wrong, she's realised that she's went a bit of a howler. Instead of taking it back, the constant, coming onto YouTube and trying to defend her actions, she knows that the more rants that she'll have, the more, not necessarily subs, but the more rants that she'll have, the more clicks that she'll get. And essentially, it's still working out for her either way, despite obviously the veil falling from the face.
Oh yeah, definitely. Well, I don't know if it was yourself that brought this point up in that episode, or was someone else in the chat. But do you not think it's really funny how in that episode, or at least in her video, she talks about people like grifters who are just basically coming on just to make money. But then before that, she talks about she's got like a new book coming out in March or next year or something like that, which is like, hold on, you can't exactly criticize people for making money off it doing this content when you yourself are doing the exact same thing that you're criticizing them of doing. But I just want to make something very clear regarding to that point. It may kind of come off as if like I'm against people making money off the internet. Of course, I'm not against that. There's nothing wrong with making a form of income if you have like a following of people or anything like that at all, regarding to what we mentioned just now. My whole point about that is don't make it to the point where you're doing it because you want to make money. Like I've mentioned this in the previous stream as well, but I don't know if you have the same perspective as I do, Scots, but when it comes to not just YouTube but just content creating in general, the way I see it is it's something that I really love to do. Now, I do live streaming at the moment, especially with the new podcast, the Mood of the Nation podcast, but I really want to make more individual videos in sometime in the future, but I just need the more time to do it. But I really love doing that. And I make no money doing this, and I don't receive any donations or anything like that, and I'm completely fine with that. You know, if people want to donate to me at some point, which I'm not asking people to donate, please don't donate or anything like that at all, please. The only thing I can ask is just to keep subscribing to my channel and share my content, and also more importantly to subscribe to Scots Armour and share his content along, especially that he's an up and coming content creator like myself in this case. So but that's really I've got to say to that part. So nothing wrong with making money, but just don't make it like to the point where it's coming off as you're only doing this just to make money, if that makes any sense, you know, that sort of thing. So
Actually, I completely agree with that, mate. You know, coming into doing this, I never really gave myself a bar or any expectations. I said earlier on, it was just to really create a picture for people. If people from outside of Scotland tuned in to see that, you know, it's not all SNP. There are voices at different regions in Scotland with different problems that's been effectively caused at the hands of the SNP. But the last number of weeks, and I've been doing this, you know, I really enjoyed the stream so far with yourself. I enjoy the stream with the lads on the Sunday. I've enjoyed having Bonnie on, Stone Garuda, Tailed Feature. And you know something? It's like an actual enjoyable thing. I look forward to actively coming on the stream, speaking with people, learning their stories, getting different perspectives and different ongoings at different parts of the country, engaging with the chat. It's effective. I don't want to use this word because it might come a bit cliche, but it's the only one I can think of. It's became like my hobby because it's something that I want to do. I want to do it regular, but I also want to get better at it. And I think I'll probably find a bit more footing and a bit more rhythm with things as time goes on. But yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you. It's like one of those things. If you find something that if you're passionate or like something that motivates you or something that you really enjoy, I think you've got to invest a little bit more time into it and just go as far as it takes you. And that's what it's all about, because the more people that do this, whether it's us or whether it's people in the chat or whatever, the more voices it gets connected, the more people can start talking about points. And, you know, for example, like yourself, Mary, right? You have been doing this longer than myself, right? And you've got guys like No Chance, you've got guys like DJ, you've got guys like Bonnie Lad and so on. We all might not hit the same type of audience, but we will hit different types of audiences as a group than we would be doing individually. So when that community builds up, we can actually get and reach different types of people better doing this as a collective network than we would be doing it for like that lady who you were talking about there. Just in it for a shekels, a couple of clicks and try to sell a book. When the conservative thing that we're really trying to keep intact here is, one, our sovereignty, two, our way of life, and three, the future for the generations to come.
Yeah, No, definitely agree with that. Do you mind me if I can give you like a piece of advice, Scott? Sorry, as you said, I've been doing this a lot longer than you have, because as I mentioned before in in the previous episodes, I've been doing YouTube since 2018, so that's now about that's just over like 3 years ago. My advice to you, Scots Armour, and it's completely great to see someone like yourself coming onto this platform, speaking your mind out, and just calling it for what it is, especially with the stuff going on in politics, especially with the SNP. And it's good to see that you're slowly but surely gaining the subscriber count and all of that. And I really hope that you do become a much bigger content creator than you are just now. And I really hope that does come later in the later date. My advice to you would be is just keep doing what you're doing. You know, there may come a point where you may want to take like a break or anything like that, whether it's a short period of break or like a long break. Just take it. But when you the reason why I say keep doing what you're doing because the more you do it, the more comfortable you'll be at it, and the more that you know what to say, you know what to do, and then you know the type of content you make, and you know that the type of audience that you do have. You just be a lot more comfortable doing it because I'll be honest, right? When I first started doing YouTube, and especially my first ever video, which was all about the Black Panther movie that came out at the time, I was just thinking, like playing it all back. I'm just thinking, good God, there's no way that I might get like maybe 5 subscribers at best. Like there, there was absolutely no way I was gonna gain like this, or at least get to this period of my YouTube career, if you want to call it that. But when I was assessing that, I gained a bit of like a very small following of people because of my connections with No Chance and all of that. But then I think my time on YouTube became a lot better when I became an ethno-nationalist because at that point, as I mentioned before, I delved into ethno-nationalism before, watching content creators like Mark Collette or Mike Enoch or some, not watch their content, but watching them in debates, with like Sargon and all of that, like your Andrew Anglins, your Richard Spencers, people that were more further to the right than I was. Because when I first started, there was this big. In fact, do you remember? Before I get into that topic, and I know this may be a very silly question to ask, but do you know who Lauren Southern is by any chance?
I've heard the name, but that's generally about it, mate.
Right, no, that's fine. What about people like? Well, she's Selner now, but she was known as Brittany Pettibone and also Martin Selner at the time. Do you know who they are? Is it like similar to Lauren Southern, like you know of the names, but you don't like see their content or anything like that at all?
No, the latter two, I've generally not heard. See, the reason, just really, like, see, the only individual, I suppose he's one of those ones, everybody's watched him at some point, was like, I came onto Sargon through the Brexit campaign, and then through that there's been like different individuals back and forth, but that's literally been it. Like, and the shocking thing is, it's not that I actively go out my way to not watch these people. It's just been, because I'm still relatively new, if you want to call it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to like. I've got the people that I follow, but I actively now go out my way to try and watch someone new every week. So like the other week, I started watching John Davidson because and you know something, I actually really enjoy his streams. I think he's a magnificent chap. But that's what I've been actively trying to do, so that when people are talking on streams about different characters, I know who they're talking about, and I can obviously understand what they're getting at with the work that they're doing.
Yeah, well, no, that's totally fair. The reason why I asked you that was because I know that there's so many content creators from like any side of the political spectrum on YouTube. The reason why I decided to bring or ask you that because back in 2018, it was just slightly after when I started, or even just slightly before, there was this whole controversy with Lauren Southern, Brittany Pettibone, or Selner now, and also Martin Selner. Especially with Martin Selner being like a white identitarian or like someone who's for like the white people within like Europe type of thing. They were banned from entering the UK because they offended the Muslim community. Well, it was mainly Lauren Southern and who offended the Muslim community because she called Muhammad gay or something like that. Whereas Brittany Pettibone, well, Martin Southern was banned from entering the UK because of his politics and his history of being an identitarian. And then Brittany Pettibone, again, Brittany Southern. I'll just say Brittany Pettibone just for the context of that time. She was barred from entering the UK not because she was partnered at the time with Martin Sellner. Well, they're married now, but they were partners at the time. But she was also planning on doing an interview with Tommy Robinson. Now, of course, this was when I was a SIFNAT. This was before I became an Ethnomat and all this and that. I decided to make a video defending Lauren Southern, with people were like, oh, that's really good, you should do that. But then they were kind of like questionable when I decided to do the same thing on the same video, in fact, for Brittany Pettibone and Martin Sellner, because they're like, well, Brittany Pettibone, yeah, you could do that, but Martin Sellner, well, he's like an identitarian, like what the hell are you doing? Now this was at the time when I again was kind of like a Count Danko type, where I was a SIFNAT. I believed in free speech and all of that. I believed it might be it gave me to admit this, but I kind of see myself more like a libertarian type. But over the years, I've been watching more content, especially with like the ethno-nat scene. Even people like Millennial Woes at the time, I watched more of his content, before the whole God Rod stuff that happened. But that, less said, the better. So round about, I would say maybe August or September, I decided to become an ethno-nationalist, and even then, my content is becoming a lot better because I'm a lot more honest with myself and more honest with my audience in this case. So really, I know this seems like a very long advice, but ultimately speaking, just keep doing what you're doing. The more you do it, the better you'll be at it. That sort of thing. So, I think what we'll also do is, unless you have any last things to say, Scots Armour, because I think we'll just call the stream to an end in this case. So.
No, listen, mate. I really appreciate the kind of the advice. Anything that gets put to me, is always welcome, because I'm never one to shy away from something. Because see, for something that I can take on and be better at it, I believe even in your day-to-day life, you should always strive to be better with certain things. We might never be the complete article, but we can always strive to be better than we were the previous day. So it's very much appreciated, mate.
No worries. Again, you're very welcome for that. So what I'll just do, team or troops, sorry, is I'm just going to end the stream here just now. What I will do is I'm just going to see if I can get the links for both Scots Armour, your YouTube channel, and also your Telegram channel, because if for those people in the chat, if you haven't done so already, I would highly recommend you checking out Scots Armour and give him the love and support he definitely needs for this for YouTube, and well, even just like the internet in general kind of thing, as he's not becoming content creator. So let me just post the link for his YouTube there. Yeah, there we go, and also see if I can find your Telegram, which should be here. I don't know where the admins are tonight. I think maybe they're watching Bonnie Lad's stream, which I completely forgot he was live tonight. Because I think he's doing a stream with Woodland, or is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, because I've seen it and I'm like, oh, okay. Which is kind of funny because everyone seems to think there's like some kind of like a friendly rivalry between me and Bonnie Lad, and that's definitely not the case whatsoever. It's just a case of not entirely too sure when exactly we'll be streaming, sort of thing. But so because everyone always says, "Oh, you both need to stop like clashing each other when it comes to these streams," but it's kind of accidental kind of thing. It's not like we definitely mean it or anything like that at all. So,
Something he's honestly, he's a really nice guy, and see, for the folks that haven't already, you should check out Woodlander's channel. I went and done it, and honestly, the guy is very interesting, like really interesting. I actually like the way he's done with his life, just going away and build his own cabin in the woods and stuff. It's actually pretty inspiring just to take yourself out of everyday living and just try and become self-sustaining the best way you possibly can. It's definitely an interesting watch.
Oh, definitely. I do watch Bonnie Lad streams here and there. In fact, I definitely need to have him on at some point, or even vice versa. But we'll definitely see if we can come up with something with that. I'm just trying to see if I don't know if I'm pretty sure I could do it on the internet here. Well, the internet on the actual website. Username copy. I think that might be right with this for your Telegram account. 1 second here. Oh, let's do it there. Okay. What I will do is I'll definitely post that link in the chat here. If I don't manage to do that, what I'll also do is after the stream comes in and it's uploaded onto my channel, I'll put the links for both your YouTube and your Telegram accounts down in the description below. So again, just to make it easier for people to go and follow your stuff as well. So yeah. So what? No worries. Again, you're very welcome. I really do appreciate you coming along tonight. So hopefully I'll definitely have you back on at some point, whether it's yourself or maybe with a few others like No Chance or anyone like that. But we'll definitely see if we can get something sorted out there in the future. So it's about to come to a close. It's approaching 8 o'clock. I want to thank Scots Armour for appearing again. I also want to thank everyone in the chat watching tonight. Well, I'm pretty sure the majority of you moved over to Bonnie Lad's stream, which is completely fine because he's got Woodlander on there. So I just also got an outro song as I also play that as well. So what I'll do is, if you wouldn't mind, Scots Armour, if you could put yourself on mute, or sorry, do you have to go just now? If you don't mind me asking.
It's cool, mate. I'll stick myself on mute until you come out.
Yeah, cool. So just put ourselves on mute, and then I'll maybe speak to you for maybe another 5 or 10 minutes, and then we'll see from there. But what I will do now is I will share the screen so that I can play the outro song. I'll also make it Scottish because myself and Scots Armour being Scotsmen ourselves, I got the song specifically for that. So let me see here. But other than that, again, I really want to thank you guys so much for your time. As absolutely appreciated of you coming along. Episode 7 will be airing this Sunday at 6 p.m. as per usual, and we'll definitely see from there. So, anyway, guys, thank you all so much for watching. This is Chief Moody and Scots Armour signing out. We will see you all next time. Take care and stay safe. Thank you.
The sailors put together their tunes out of older songs. Like as not, they swiped a song from something they heard on land and put new words to it. I'm told that this came from an old Scottish marching song, but if there's any Scots here, I hope they pardon me because I know it's gotten changed. Was you ever in Quebec, bonny laddie, Heelan laddie, stowing timber on the deck, a bonny Heelan laddie. Hey ho, away we go, bonny laddie, Heelan laddie. Hey ho, and away we go, a bonny Heelan laddie. Tell you what, there's no sense in me hollering my head off all by myself. So you help me out on that chorus. If you can't get anything else, get the hey ho part. You all set? Hey ho, away we go, bonny laddie, Heelan laddie. Hey ho, and away we go, bonny Heelan laddie. Was you ever in Aberdeen, bonny laddie, Heelan laddie, prettiest girls you ever seen, bonny Heelan laddie. Hey ho, and away we go, bonny laddie, Heelan laddie. Hey ho, away we go, bonny Heelan laddie. You all working on this? Don't anybody lie down on the job. Gotta haul together. Was you ever in Baltimore, bonny laddie, Heelan laddie, dancing on that sanded floor, bonny Heelan laddie. Hey ho, away we go, bonny laddie, Heelan laddie. Hey ho, away we go, bonny Heelan laddie. Was you ever in Callao, bonny laddie, Heelan laddie, there the girls are never slow, bonny Heelan laddie. Hey ho, away we go, bonny laddie, Heelan laddie. Hey ho, away we go, bonny Heelan laddie. Was Was you ever in Miramichi? Bunny laddie, heeling lad. Say, do you know where Miramichi is? It's the line between New Brunswick, Canada, and the state of Maine. That's where the tide runs 40 feet. Was you ever in Miramichi? Bunny laddie, heeling laddie. There you tie fast to a tree. Bunny heeling lad. Hey ho, away we go. Bunny laddie, heeling laddie. Hey ho, away we go. Bunny heeling lad. Was you ever in Quebec? Bunny laddie, heeling laddie. Loading timber on the deck. Bunny heeling lad. Hey ho, away we go. Bunny laddie, heeling lad.